Welcome friends to another r/IDontWorkHereLady video. If you want to lend a helping hand to those who do work here, me, then go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by RoseLover58. Nope, don't work here. My friend works for a very huge global conglomerate in management and travels around the US a lot. However, his house is in the suburbs of a famous college town in Texas. He was out of the town for the whole last week and came back yesterday evening. Once at the airport, his colleague and friend picked him up as a favor to drop him off at home. When they were almost at home, friend realized his fridge was near empty and he needed some food. So they stopped by the gas station to get some frozen foods and some small snacks. Friend is always dressed sharp. Always. It's how he was taught since he was a kid. He was royalty. Literally. His name's on my country's list of people with royal lineage, so he's always clean. But he's a very, very, very nice guy, unless you piss him off. Friend and his friend went into the store and got some stuff. Friend was carrying a laptop case in his hand, dressed in a suit. There was a guy behind the counter who looked so bored, friend was sure he would rather go back home to play on his laptop instead of being on his phone. A woman came up to friend. The woman said, "Where can I find drink? I usually buy it here, but I can't find it today." Friend, confused, says, "I'm sorry, what? I don't know. I don't come here usually, so I don't know where it is." The woman says, "Another lazy college student. You are getting paid to help me. Just do your job." She assumed that he was a part-timer at the store, working in a suit, holding his laptop bag and shopping cart. My friend now understood what was happening. Friend said, "Sorry, I don't work here. I'm also here to shop. There's a guy behind the counter. Maybe he can help." The woman says, "Help me now. I know you need this job, so don't force me to call your manager and get you fired. Stop being lazy." Friend, now thinking maybe his mask made it hard for her to understand, pulled his mask down a bit and said a little loudly, "Ma'am, I don't work here. I'm also shopping. I had a long flight and I'm tired. Please leave me alone." The woman says, "You brown guys are always lazy. I'm asking you for the last time before I call your manager to get you fired. Get my drinks right now." At this point, friend was pissed, but he looked at her calmly and said loudly this time, "Sure, let me help you." Then he looked at the assistant behind the counter and called out loudly, "Hey dude, can you come here? This lady needs some help shopping, but I think she has some problems with hearing and sight. She thinks I work here and can't seem to hear even when I explain that I don't multiple times." Then he looked at the woman and said loudly, "Don't worry, someone will help you so that you don't trip and fall." The woman was red in the face. She just looked at friend angrily and walked away. The bored shop assistant didn't even know what had happened. And all while this was happening, it seems like friend's colleague actually paid for a drink and came back running and was enjoying the show while sipping his drink. He laughed the whole way home. Does the success of this story make you want to try that on a Karen sometime? Somebody comes up to you accusing you of working here and not helping them. Would you want to just find some random person nearby and yell to them quite loudly saying, "This woman's deaf," or "This woman has a few circuits short," or is maybe a bit slow? Or would you still prefer a different method, maybe just leaving, maybe just trying to ignore them? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Our next story is by Wombat the Wombait. No, my old manager can't order me around either. First off, to be fair, I used to work at the place this happened. I used to work as a pickup clerk at a nearby Giant, but I stopped working there about a year ago. But because of my job, I basically have the entire store memorized and can quickly point out what row something should be in if I was asked. That, plus the fact that I sometimes chat with my old coworkers, could make someone assume that I still work there. Anyways, I was there yesterday looking for ingredients I was missing for dinner, but while I was looking, someone walked up to me. She was about the same age as me and had the vibe of, "I need to find something, but I'm too anxious to just ask an employee." She was about the same age as me and had the same vibe of, "I need to find something, but I'm too anxious to just ask an employee" around her that I usually have. She got my attention, then politely asked where something in another aisle was. I pointed it out to her, she thanked me and went on her way, and I went back to looking for my ingredients. About a minute later, someone else came up to me and got my attention, but before I could even say yes, they started talking. Let's just call her Karen for now. Karen says, "I need to get whatever it was she needed." I say, "Oh, that's an aisle number, whatever it was." She says, "I already checked there and they were all out." I say, "Oh, well, sorry about that. Maybe they'll have some more later." I then turned to go back to my shopping when she said the next magic words. "Can't you just go to the back and check?" Of course, I was pretty confused at that and turned to look at her. No, I don't work here." Karen immediately started to get annoyed. Yes, you do. I've seen you around here before, and you just finished helping that other girl. I say, well, I used to work here, so I know where stuff is, but I quit like a year ago. She says, don't give me that. Why else would you be here all of the time? I say, yeah, because I shop here. Karen started to look genuinely pissed when I said that for some reason, and I decided then was a perfect time to leave and avoid getting yelled at. I continued getting what I needed, constantly checking over my shoulder to make sure I wasn't being followed, and probably looked incredibly suspicious. I finally got everything I needed and made a beeline towards the self-checkout area. Now, I should note that the self-checkout space is directly across from the customer service area, where you can look up and look directly at the self-checkout. I say that because when I finished bagging my stuff, I looked up to see the Karen from before talking to my old manager at the customer service desk. I should also note that my old manager is a large chunk of why I decided to quit, mostly because she was/is a controlling jerk that constantly breathes down other people's throats instead of doing any actual work. Surprisingly, she was doing her job for once and nodded along while Karen angrily ranted at her. I decided to ignore the two and start heading towards the exit, but of course, that was the moment that Karen decided to look over and spot me trying to leave. She pointed at me and yelled, "Her! That girl right there!" Of course, everyone stopped and started to stare at me, which would have made just leaving a lot more awkward, so I stopped in my tracks. My old manager leaned over the counter to look at me, made a confused face, then turned to the lady and said, "Sorry, ma'am, but she doesn't work here anymore." Apparently being proven wrong by the manager was Karen's tipping point, because she suddenly started to scream at my old manager. "You're the manager, she's an employee, tell her to help me now." Surprisingly, my old manager gathered up the gall to actually turn to me again at that. The manager said, "OP, do you mind helping her?" At this point, I was genuinely shocked at her question. I knew she would do anything for a customer at her employee's expense, but I didn't think it would extend to people that didn't even work for her. I ask, "Are you going to pay me?" The manager says no, but I say, "Then yes, I do mind. See ya." And before either of them could say anything, I sped walked out of the store. I heard Karen start yelling again, but I couldn't properly catch what she was saying before I fully exited the store and headed towards my car. Yeah, not exactly an exciting ending. Sorry, I'm just still reeling at both how furious that lady got when I said I didn't work here anymore, and the gall of my old manager to attempt to order me around after I hadn't worked for her in literally a year. The more things change, the more they stay the same. I think my mind is blown that you literally do not work in a place and they're willing to come to you and be like, "Hey, could you help this customer out for me?" And this isn't like something where OP had a good rapport with the manager. It wasn't like they were chummy or anything. They hated each other apparently. It's just really weird behavior from that manager. Our next story is by What Am I? Of course you freaking work here. Why else would you be dressed like that? So this was back in August. I just moved to the city and had just started working at a bank. I didn't have the company apparel yet, but had a good amount of business clothes, plus I like dressing nice. I was done early that day, and downtown was on the train ride home. I figured I'd stop and do some clothes shopping. I was shopping around the store in the business attire section. In my business attire, one could guess why there would be confusion. And this lady, who only spoke Spanish, asked if I spoke Spanish and if I could help her. I said yes and asked what she needed. The Spanish lady asked, "Do you know where the suitcases are?" in Spanish. I reply in Spanish, "Sorry ma'am, I don't work here, but I think they're on the first floor." We both laughed and she commented on how nice my clothes looked. It made me blush a little, I'm self-conscious. Then she thanked me for helping her. 20 freaking seconds later, another lady comes up to me in a not so nice way, demanding I get her another coat with matching pants and such size, asking why we had suits mixed up and specifically to get her a freaking dressing room, since she had no idea why we only had 2 open in the middle of a pandemic. I explained to her that 1, we're in a pandemic, 2, I don't know poop about suits, I just wear them. 3, I don't freaking work here. The mean lady says, "Of course you freaking work here. Why else would you be dressed like that?" I say, "Because I like dressing nice and frankly, it's none of your business." She says, "Well, I saw you helping the other lady. Stop lying." I say, "Because she was nice. maybe you should try it every once in a while. At this point, one of the actual workers saw what was going on and intervened. We both happened to be in the changing room, different stalls, and she started going off on the phone about how a rude employee refused to help her. When I was done trying on new suits, I went with black this time. She was talking to the manager about me and exclaimed, "That short one," when I walked by. The manager was like, "Who the freak is that dude?" I just laughed and paid for my clothes. Moral of the story, don't be a Richard and someone might help you, even if they don't work there. I wholeheartedly agree with OP here, the very last thing they said. If I'm at a place where I know it very well, I can probably help just about anybody, and they come up to me politely asking for some assistance, I try and give them a hand, try to give them a pointer. But if somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey you, show me where this is," to me I'd think, what would I ever possibly owe that person? Our next story is by Helpful Quail 276. Pro tip, save yourself a lot of trouble and cover up your uniform the moment your shift ends. I work at a supermarket that's a major company in my country, not America, and unfortunately we all have to wear uniforms. My particular uniform includes heavy-duty pants and boots as a requirement. I work at a store that's the next suburb from where I live, and my local stores, there are 2 equal distance from home, where I shop for my own groceries, are places I visit after work quite often, as not all stores stock the same items. Some things sell more in different areas, and therefore are stocked in those areas and not others. Quite often after work, I go to my local store to pick up things my own store does not sell. The sheer number of times I'm bothered and abused by customers at these stores simply because I happen to wear a uniform from that store. Most of the time, I try my best to help despite it not being my job to do so, since I'm not on the clock. What makes it worse is when I'm at my local hardware store, which has a very similar styled uniforms to ours, so I constantly get questions and demands when I have no idea what they're trying to say, or why they're bothering me, until I remember my uniform is similar to the ones used at the hardware store. The way it usually goes is this: "Do you know where item is, or why this item isn't sold here, or why there isn't any of these items on the shelf?" "I'm not sure," I respond, since when I'm not in the supermarket I actually work at, or am at my local hardware store, I genuinely don't know. "Why not? You work here." I say, "Actually, I really don't." They say, "Yes, you do. You're wearing the uniform." I say, "Ma'am, if I'm at a different supermarket, I work at a different store, and I'm only here to get my own groceries." Or for the hardware store, "I have no idea. Sorry." To which they flatly disbelieve what I said and proceed to whine about how bad my customer service is or how badly I was trained because I don't know the answer to her questions. If I'm in a different store from my own, I find another team member to ask them to help the customer, taking them off my back. Or if I'm in the hardware store, I simply walk away since I have no obligation to help her. Since my uniform means nothing to the hardware store, I quite often deliberately take my uniform off or cover it up just to avoid being harassed by annoying 60-something women, but sometimes I'm just too tired or it's summer and I don't want to boil putting a jacket on. I keep a jacket in the car for this sole purpose, but I'm thinking of putting a shirt in there too, simply to cover up my uniform when it's summer. Yeah, as frustrating as it is, I do think that if you work at a store and you go to another of that store chain and you're literally wearing the uniform worn in that store, it's kind of more than understandable that you'd keep getting questioned by people. And unfortunately, that comes with your fair share of Karens. So as disappointing as it may be, a change of clothes is probably just the best bet. And our final story of the day is by Masala451. Yo, where the condoms at? Kind of a funny story. I had this dark blue navy shirt I loved so much. I used to wear it all the time, and I just so happened to wear it this day. I was at Mart Wall with my sister. We were walking around looking down every aisle and then buying the stuff we needed. We somehow ended up in the pharmacy section because we started out looking at the travel size stuff. I hear this girl, she's probably around my age, with her mom. They say, "Yo, where the condoms at?" I laughed and said, "I don't work here, but they're in the next aisle." They say, "Oh, my bad. Mom, you don't even work here." We all laugh. They go over to the condom aisle and I hear them talking. "Okay, which ones do we need?" "Girl, I need the Magnum, the freak." I just laughed my butt off and went about my shopping trip. I think this is one of those situations where maybe context just isn't necessary. Maybe just let them do what they're doing with that. I don't understand the we part. What do we need? Like I said, I don't know if I want to know. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel, and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.